Blog Talk Radio.
Hello everyone, this is Lori Smith on Blog Talk Radio. Good morning. It is 10 o'clock here in the morning, Saturday morning, August 27th, and this is Worldwide Epidemic of Child and Human Rights Abuses, a half-an-hour show I like to do on Saturdays, just talking about what's going on around the world, the issues children and women and men face. It's horrific, and we know, just looking around at the headlines, what's happening, and looking around at the news reports coming in all the time, there's always something going on, and it's always horrible. And I just like to draw attention to it, and with like-minded people who care about people and really want to see change. I'm mostly advocate, for change within North America. It's Canada and the United States, and I'm up here in Canada, but I'm from the States, so I'm a dual citizen, and I just see what's going on around the world too. And I've always been sort of interested in, having a lot of compassion for people, a lot of empathy for people around the world who are suffering. Knowing where that here in North America there really is, the quality of life is really so much better, even though we have our share of problems. Especially regarding child abuse and human rights abuses, but worldwide, it's just really, you think about what's going on here in the United States and Canada, and you think about, the fact that we do have laws in place and we do have protection, somewhat. Not everybody is afforded that protection or that justice, and not everybody, is able to access certain things, and the system's not perfect. But then you look around the world and you think, oh my God, think about how hard it is for the people here, and then I think about the people around the world and how hard it really is for them. And because there is nothing in place, there's nothing set to help these people. And so, they just stay in my heart all the time, and I see the headlines and I don't just pass over them. I look at them and I read them and I think about these people and put myself in their shoes for a few minutes and try to think, wow, how could I even survive something like that, or how hard it must be for them, right? And so that's why I like to do this show. So thanks everybody for tuning in. I appreciate it. I'm just an advocate. I'm just a public speaker, really. Public speaker speaking out against human rights abuses and especially child abuse. Anybody who listens to my shows, one child abuse survivor to another, and child abuse prevention is up to us, knows that. But I'm very interested in what's going on around the world as well, and I volunteer with a lot of groups who do some great work, and I haven't been very active with them for a long time, for 2 years at least, because I was with Dreamcatchers for Abused Children. But I still watch what they do. I still care very much about the missions and what they're doing and the work that they're doing, and the same with Dreamcatchers for Abused Children. I just care about anybody who's doing anything to make a difference in this world, and that's what it's really all about. It's not about ego, and it's not about me. It's about these children out here and people out here who need help. And it's not just about North America, it's about the world, right? So, there's so many issues, like we, in order to help, we kind of, we have to find out what our niche is, find out where we can make the most difference. And everybody's, in a different position to do different things, and everybody's got something they can offer. And so that's why I just like to encourage people, get involved where you can, get involved where you feel your heart is, and, make a stand and make some noise, and make a difference for these people out here, right, wherever it is you choose to do so, right? I want to look at a couple of articles that I saw this morning, and these are just information that I just see on the web. A lot of it I have popping into my inbox because I set myself up to receive notifications from IRIN Humanitarian News and Analysis, and as well as AlertNet, and that's the world's humanitarian news site. And AlertNet, on this one article, they have Somali children risk death all the time, quote-unquote, amnesty. This was posted a little while ago. This was posted July 20th, but it doesn't matter because it's what's happening over there. It's what's happening to children. And, I look at the situations in the United States and Canada, North America, not including Mexico. Sadly enough, Mexico, my God, I wish we could include Mexico. They need some serious help. Just looking at what's going on in the United States and Canada, it's horrific. It's absolutely horrible. And this one article was posted by Katie Nguyen and out of London, AlertNet. And she says children in Somalia are being systematically recruited to fight on front lines, killed in indiscriminate attacks, and denied an education, Amnesty International said on Wednesday. And we know this, like anybody who studies the worldwide situation for children, especially what's going on in some of the countries in Africa, like on the continent of Africa. The situation is bad, really bad for a lot of people. And, I actually had the fortunate opportunity of running into one of the lost boys who was one of the young boys in Sudan who actually trucked across the desert and actually made it on the run from, he didn't want to be involved in he didn't want to carry a rifle and a gun and a machine gun and go around and kill people. So, he was just a refugee on the run, and he survived with a whole lot of other boys who were on the run, and they made it. And I actually got to meet him. He lives here in Calgary, and I got to spend some time with him a while back. This is probably about 3 years ago, and we were both involved in a group, and he was just such a nice guy and such an awesome guy, and he was really out there raising awareness and to what's going on in Africa, in some of the countries within Africa, right? So they said other abuses include being flogged and being forced to attend public stonings and amputations by Islamist groups, including Al-Qaeda-affiliated Al-Shabaab, the rights watchdog said in a report. And these are children in Somalia. And it said, as a child in Somalia, you risk death all the time. You can be killed, recruited, sent to the front line, punished by Al-Shabaab because you are caught listening to music or wearing the wrong clothes, be forced to fend for yourself because you have lost your parents, or even die because you don't have access to adequate medical care, Michelle Kigari, Amnesty's Deputy Director for Africa, said in a statement. And this is a never-ending conflict where children are experiencing unimaginable horrors on a daily basis, she added. They risk becoming a lost generation if the world continues to ignore the war crimes affecting so many of them, quote-unquote. And Amnesty blamed both government forces and Islamist groups for recruiting child soldiers, a practice that has increased since fighting escalated in 2006. And fear of recruitment was increasingly being cited by Somali refugees as a reason for fleeing the country, according to the report, which is based on interviews with refugees in Kenya and Djibouti in 2009 and in Kenya in 2010, before drought in Somalia reached emergency levels. So it said Al-Shabaab were sending children to recruit other children to its ranks, as well as luring them with promises of phones and money. And the group were also using threats, raids on schools, and abductions to bolster their numbers. This is absolutely unacceptable. I mean, people raiding schools and grabbing kids and forcing them to carry a gun. The children were also being trained to handle firearms, grenades, and improvised explosive devices, Amnesty said. In addition to being targeted for recruitment as fighters, many Somali children have seen parents and friends deliberately killed or tortured. And they said they have also been flogged by Al-Shabaab for not praying on time, or in case of some girls for not wearing the hijab headscarf or the hijab or the abaya gown. Just because they're not wearing the appropriate, clothing, or they're not praying when they're supposed to, they're being flogged or being beaten. And this is absolutely horrific, this is not a good place for a child, I mean, and we know the situation over here in the States, in Canada with the child abuse issues. I mean, it's horrific. It's an epidemic. It's mind-boggling, you know what I mean? And I like to talk about it because so many people don't. That's exactly why I do. And it puts me out there, and it sets me up for a lot of negative comments. It sets me up to be very unpopular, It's, because of what I'm doing. And I'm not like a one-man person, you know what I mean? I like to join groups, and I like to be involved with other people because there's strength in numbers. And yet I'm not going to shut up. I'm not going away. And so, this is the issue. It's hard. It's extremely hard because we're fighting an uphill battle all the time. And you think about these people out here who are fighting, to help these children, like in Africa, in these countries in Africa that are, where there's just no help for these people. There's no hope. There's nothing set in place. You can imagine, and the people that do try to help, they're sitting on the front lines. Like people that would actually attempt to try to help some of these Somali children who have been recruited by the, the Islamist terrorists over there, and these different groups who are kidnapping these children basically and offering them, a chance to eat a meal a day and have a phone or whatever, and whatever they're using to entice these children into the war, into their military action, which that's what I guess they would call it. But these kids, they don't stand a chance because there's no possible way you can even there's no justice. There's no way you can even help these children. Like, I mean, even Amnesty International and all these other groups, World Vision and other groups, based groups, UNICEF and all that. I mean, look at the trouble they have trying to help these children. And so you just think about that, and this is around the world, and then you think about the trouble that we have in the United States and Canada just speaking up about child abuse. You know what I mean? Like, so many people really don't want to hear from us. So many people really don't want to hear my voice. And I figured I'm just going to keep speaking out. I'm going to keep speaking up because we have to stand up for child rights. We have to stand up for human rights, and we have to do it in a very positive, proactive way. And so, it's important that everybody become educated and know that, children have rights, and abuse is a crime. And, in our own country, we can't even get this under control. I mean, children are dying. Children are, if they're not dying, they're in the hospital due to the abuse-related injuries. If they're not in the hospital, they're going to have to suffer through this abuse until, they either leave the home or grow up or run away or whatever they do. Or, somebody dies, whoever was their abuser. I mean, this is absolutely horrific. Like, we have to stop this. We have to change the mentality. We have to change people's hearts, and we also have to change their minds. It's not just an issue of the heart, but it's also an issue of the mind, because it has a lot to do with education. It has a lot to do with, people understanding that it's wrong to do that, because nobody wants to be hurt. See, that's why I can totally justify what I do, and I don't have a problem doing what I do, and it doesn't matter to me who doesn't like my voice and who doesn't care about what I have to say and who doesn't like my story and who doesn't like the fact that I was abused. It really doesn't matter to me, you know what I mean, because I know what it's like to be these little kids on that side of the fence, I know what it's like to be hurt. And we all do to a certain degree. Everybody kind of knows what it's like to be hurt. I mean, everybody's experienced pain of some type. And then you put yourself in an abused child's shoes, a child who's been neglected or abused in any way. And you just put yourself in their shoes for about 5-10 minutes to think about the pain that they're going through. And there's a whole group of society, actually a large portion of society, that really doesn't care and thinks that it's okay to do these things to children. And it's so incredibly wrong. It's backwards thinking. It's not right. It's a crime. It's a criminal offense. Abuse is wrong. And we really have to make some noise. I thought about it. I thought, a few years back, right, I was like 2 years ago, actually, November 2009 is when I started doing Blog Talk Radio. And I stumbled across it by accident because I was just looking at something that somebody had posted on Facebook and a friend of mine on Facebook. And I thought, wow, I'm going to check that out because it was her show. And that's Gail Crabtree, Voices of Hope. Voices of Hope, I believe that's what that's called. It's been a long time since I've listened in. I've just been so busy. I've been really busy with Dreamcatchers, and that's what it has taken a lot of my time. And now I'm not with Dreamcatchers anymore, and I just resigned a while back, and so now I'm free again to do my thing. But the thing is this is absolutely unacceptable. Like, I just stumbled across Blog Talk Radio, and I thought, you know what? I'm going to speak out. Because this is what I do this is what I do anyway. You know what I mean? Whether it's online or whatever. And Dreamcatchers for Abused Children are awesome, and I hope everybody will support those guys. Forever, like as long as they're around. They are doing some great work, and they're always going to be in my heart. You know what I mean? Because I love what they do, I love what they stand for, and I love the fact that they're on a mission to stop and prevent child abuse, and that makes me happy. And they're very vocal. They're out there. Whereas a lot of other groups are not. You have to search them out. You have to look for them, and they're doing stuff behind the scenes, but you really never hear from them. They're not public advocates. They're not primary prevention. And I'm a primary prevention person. That's what I'm all about, is stopping the abuse before it happens. I really think that we need to stop abuse before it happens, right? Because this shouldn't be happening to children. It shouldn't be happening to children in the United States. It shouldn't be happening to children in Canada, and it should not be happening to children worldwide. I can't just ignore the worldwide situation. I know what's going on around the world, and so we all do. Anybody who pays attention to the headlines, but most people would rather not look. And what happened to me 4 years ago was I was sitting around. This is when I began my healing journey, and I also at the same time, it's kind of strange how it all happened and how it all came about. But I was watching something on TV, and I just couldn't turn away from it. Like I had always seen the stuff on TV about international, issues going on with child abuse and even human rights, all human rights. And this one particular newscast came on, and it was about a woman who had her face smashed in, and they had a camera. It was a hidden camera, and these people, they were walking through. This is in Afghanistan, and they saw this woman on the ground with her face smashed in, and they never really showed it. They had a hidden camera, and they got the film out, which was great. And her face was smashed in. I mean, completely smashed. She had half of her jaw was missing, and she had all the teeth were busted out, and she was alive, and she was just on the ground, just begging for help, And what it turned out to be was that her husband had bashed her in the face with one of his rifles, a rifle or whatever, and totally took out half of her face. And they said, there'd be medical attention for her. She would not get any medical help. There would be no way anybody would be able to help her because her husband has control of her, and he's not going to, if he doesn't allow her to see a doctor, then she's not going to get any kind of pain relief at all, and she would probably just die. How can you survive that? That's where I put myself in her shoes, because I know what it's like to be bashed in the face. I know what it's like to be, hit to where you think you're going to die. You know what I mean? Because I was abused as a child, and I know what it's like to have to be beaten with implements and also fists and whatnot, and be kicked in the head and kicked, I know what it's like. So and how people, can survive this when it's that severe. It's incredibly harsh, right? I mean, I put myself in her shoes, and I thought, oh my God, because I know what it's like to be beaten, and hurt as a child. And so I thought, here's this woman, there's going to be no help for her. The pain that she is in must be immense. We all know what it's like to have a toothache, and here half of this woman's face is gone. And I thought, oh my God, because I've had toothaches before that were so extremely bad that I thought I should just die to get out of the pain. It was so incredibly bad. And I thought, here's this woman, oh my God, and my heart just broke for her. And my heart just broke, and I thought, my God, what I've seen and witnessed, my mother being beaten and trashed by my dad, and my mother was also highly abusive, so I always include that because I don't want people to think that she was just a victim. And she was also she was my main abuser, and she hurt me, and she hurt all of her children, but mainly me. And the issue is what it is. People do these horrific things to people, and it's got to stop. And I thought, when is this going to stop? And tears just rolled down my face. And I thought, I have nothing better to do with the rest of my time here on Earth, really, that's going to be more self-satisfying and more satisfying than being a voice for people out here who need a voice, right? There's every child out here who's being abused needs us. They need our voice, they need our time, they need our efforts, they need our thinking caps on, and they need us to figure out a way to stop this. Put yourself in a child's shoes who's being raped and sodomized. Put yourself in a child's shoes who's being burned and stabbed and thrown downstairs and having their necks broken. Let's put yourself in their shoes for a couple of minutes. Put yourself in their shoes when they have their heads bashed in, right? Like, I'm lucky I survived. And I didn't think I used to be. I didn't feel very lucky when I was a kid. I used to kind of pray that, I didn't pray, I just wished that I would die, or that my parents would kill me, you know what I mean? And that's how much pain I was in my heart and in my body. And I think about the fact that my injuries were, they did damage, but it wasn't like these little kids out here who have their heads bashed in. They end up in the hospital and they die like 2 weeks later or 2 days later, or they're just pronounced dead on the scene from abusive head trauma. It's harsh. It's so harsh. And I get so tired of people just excusing it away. And I get really tired of people just blowing it off and ignoring it. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to make as much noise as I can, and I'm going to do, because I have nothing better to do. So this is, even though I relate and base a lot of my stuff on my story, it's really not about me. It's about look and see what abuse does to somebody. I'm a first-hand person to know exactly what it will do, And so who better to raise my voice? Because I know what these kids are going through. And so in order for me to be able to show people that I can totally relate, and also for me, for my inner child who got no help, like there was no help for me when I was growing up. And that's the case, and that's why I do put my story in there. That is exactly why I do it. It's just not to gain fame or glory or anything else. I'm actually on the outs with most people because of what I do. And it's not to make friends. I have some awesome friends, my God, I have so many people who support me, so many people who have been there for me, which I've never had in my entire lifetime. And, it's awesome to have that support. And and it does make me feel better because I didn't receive that ever. And I was just so rejected all my life, you know what I mean? And unwanted. And so not only the physical abuse, not only the sexual abuse, it was a lot of emotional abuse, psychological abuse. And I know what kids are going through out here. And so I thought, I'm gonna do this, and I really don't care how many enemies I make. I really don't care how many friends I make. What's really important is that we stop this mess, And so I just thought, no, I'm going to be a voice, and I'm going to do it, and I'll try to support as many groups as I can, and in this, you know what I mean? And so I hope that it will encourage other people to do the same, you know what I mean? Like, this is absolutely unacceptable that these children should be having to go through this, even in North America, but especially worldwide. Like, this is absolutely unacceptable. We have to keep these little kids in our hearts, because see, there'd be no help for these little kids in Somalia. right? There's no help for kids over here in the United States, so what makes us think there's going to be help for any children around the world? And I could name all the countries, but of course that would take up my whole show. I'm talking about South America, I'm talking about Asia, I'm talking about, Southeast Asia, I'm talking about Southwest Asia, I'm talking about Northern Europe, I'm talking about the world, man. Like, this makes me sick that we can't figure this out, and it's 2011. It's like, come on. This is an issue of the heart. This is an issue of men's and women's hearts and other people who would just choose to hurt people. And because I grew up in this mess, in this family where everybody was choosing to make these wrong choices and hurt each other, I thought, my God, my family was just like a little microcosm of really what's wrong with this world. And that is that people just love to hurt other people, and they get off on it, and it just makes me sick to my stomach. So I thought, hey, I got nothing better to do, because, when I was young, I just wished for death, and I didn't care if I lived or died. And, I really did want out because I was in so much pain. And then I got older, and I thought, well, no, I'm going to try to make the best of it. And then, now I'm like, what, I don't care, kill me, whatever you want to do, but I'm not shutting up. Because it doesn't matter to me. You can't do anything to me that's already been done. You can't take anything away from me that hasn't already been taken away. I really don't care. Rejection is no problem for me. You know what I mean? That's why I don't mind doing the public speaking and talking about, and putting myself out there as a primary prevention person to stop child abuse before it happens, because it's very unpopular. Nobody wants to hear from us, right? From any of us, because it's depressing. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, it's going to ruin my day if I have to think about this. Like, most people really don't want to think about it. I have a life too. I'm going shopping today. I have things to do. I have a life outside of this, and yet it doesn't bother me to keep these people in my heart while I'm going shopping. It doesn't ruin my day. What ruins my day is the fact that people don't care. And that's why they're hurting their children. I'm talking about the people who are out here abusing people, hurting their families, hurting their neighbors, hurting their countrymen, hurting their countrywomen. This makes me sick. And if we don't stand up and actually speak out against it, well, then who are we? We're no better than those other people. You know what I mean? Because it's wrong. It's always been wrong. And when I was a kid and I was growing up, I hated to see what was happening in my family. It wasn't even so much about me and the abuse that I was going through, because I always took my mother's side, and my mother was my main abuser. So if that just tells you something, I knew my mother was a victim in this, and I knew that she was mistreated all her life. She was abused as a child, and then she was abused by my dad, and I knew that she was suffering, and yet she was my main abuser. But I still chose to protect her. I still chose to speak out against what I saw. And my brothers, they were my abusers as well, at least one of them for sure. The other ones were slapping me around quite often and hurting me, but not like my brother who raped me and sodomized me. But the thing is I stuck up for them too, because I knew they were victims in this. And so I would speak out against abuse, and I would get beaten for it. I would get verbally assaulted for it. I'd be thrown out of the house, as a young teen, not as a preteen actually. And the issue is I didn't care. I was like, no, I'm not going to shut up. I'm going to speak out. And finally, I used to tell my parents, I'd be like, I don't care, go ahead and kill me, do what you're going to do, but I don't like what you're doing to me. And I don't like this situation here in the home. And if you're going to kill me, go right ahead. But I'm not shutting up. And so that's been my attitude my whole life. And so, I can't really change who I am. I'll stick up for anybody who I think needs to be stood up for, and protect people when I can. Right? If I know about it, I will do what I can to protect people. It's so incredibly wrong to not do that. You know what I mean? And it's just because I have the ability to see this stuff, and it's because that's how I grew up. A lot of people who may not realize the situation around the world, and they may not be able to put themselves in these people's shoes, these men's shoes, these women's shoes, these children's shoes, who are being abused worldwide, not just in the not just in the North American continent. And it's easy for me to get into their heads. It's easy for me to get into their bodies and what's going on in their lives, because I've been through a lot, And so I see where these people are suffering, and I see that there won't be any help for them. And then I remember my own case and where there was no help for me. And I'm like, oh my God, why are we still doing this? Why are people doing this? It's an issue of the heart, and it's an issue of the mind, and we need to change this. We really do. We need to make a difference, and the more people who who stand up for what is right, the more will be done, right? And that's why there's been all these people out here before me. I mean, I'm in my mid-40s. There's been all these people out here for years talking about this. At least since the late 1800s, people started to really speak out against this stuff. And I mean, nothing much was done until just recently, around the 1980s. But the thing is at least there were people willing to put their, to say, you know what, I don't care if I'm unpopular. I really don't care if I lose all my friends. I don't care if I lose my position within a company or lose my position within, a certain social status. I'm speaking out against what is wrong. I'm going to stand up for what is right. If we all did that, the world would change. And that's the issue. But see, not everybody's going to do it, because there will always be somebody who wants to hurt somebody else, whether it's a woman, a man, or a child. There's always going to be somebody that thinks that they should be allowed to batter or emotionally batter or verbally batter another person. There's always going to be somebody who thinks it's okay to hurt another person, and in whatever way it is, because there's always going to be somebody who just can't stop themselves. You know what I mean? It's absolutely horrific, because people think, well, sure, it's just like somebody's thinking about that's why I bring my case to the table, because I want people to realize what happened to me. It's not like my brother couldn't have made the right choice and decided not to sexually use me and not rape me and sodomize me, but he did. He could have stopped himself. He could have realized that was wrong before he did it. He could have thought, oh, I can't do that. My God, I'll have to find out some other way to relieve my sexual tensions or whatever he was psychologically ill was what his problem was. But the thing is he chose to do that, and then he chose to continue to do that. And my mother chose to not help me, right? And she didn't even make my brother leave. He was 21 years old. I was 8 years old, and she didn't even make him leave the house. She just told me that I needed to deal with that on my own. It was my problem. My mother allowed it. See, this is the thing. This is where, I know how wrong this stuff is. People not speaking out, people not doing the right thing by people not doing the right thing by children. Even though I protected my mother, I took a bat to my dad's head one night because my dad was, I thought my dad was going to attack my mother, and she had just had surgery, and she just had surgery that practically killed her, and she was cut from the top of her breastbone all the way down to her privates, and they had to button her up because she didn't have any real skin left, and it was all scar tissue. And so this is, my shows are graphic, right? I do post graphic warnings on my shows. But anyway, she was almost dead, and my dad was in there butting her, and I thought for sure he was going to try to rape her or hurt her, because that's what he was always doing. And I was 9 years old. I took a bat to his head. That's just, and my mother was my main abuser. She was hurting me in every way, and she let my brother rape me and sodomize me and didn't care. But I still have to stand up for what is right, because that's the issue here. There's right and there's wrong. And there's no in between. There's no riding the fence. You either agree with what's right or you agree with what is wrong, but you have to pick a side, and you can't sit in the middle of the fence. So if you don't stand up for what is right, then basically you're saying it's okay that people do these things, and it's not. My mother was raped by my father. I was a rape child. So I was born a rape child, and then I was raped. So my mother told me, I hate you. I don't want you. You're a rape child. And beat on me and hurt me severely, and my whole life. And then allowed my brother to rape me. So I was a rape child and raped. And you want to talk about somebody who wanted to die. You know what I mean? I did. And so I put myself in these little kids' shoes out here in Somalia and wherever they're at, all around the world, Russia and all these places where they're just being so mistreated, Mexico, South America. I put myself in their shoes because I know that they're suffering. I know that they're hurting. And, everybody, men and women too, I know that men and women suffer human rights as well. We have to wake up and smell the coffee. This affects everybody. And we need to do what we can to help them. You know what I mean? So within your own capabilities, right, look around and see where you can get involved, find out where your heart is in this whole thing, and then get involved some way, somehow, right? Do what you can. Have a great day, everybody. Have a great weekend. I'll be back on my show tomorrow night as well as the rest of the week. One Child Abuse Survivor to another Monday morning. And, if you need something or if you just need a friend, you can get a hold of me on Facebook. And if you just need some information that I might have, please get a hold of me, right? Have a great day, everybody, and we'll talk to you soon. Keep all these kids out here in your heart, and make sure you do stand up for what is right. Have a great day.